So when we talk about our hips, obviously they're connected to our backs and our legs. They create a lot of problems in both directions. So the next thing I'm about to show you, I like to call it PB and squeeze, and it's actually working with different ranges of motion. But first, to start off, you're going to be lying down with your feet bent, and you can see my hips right here, and I have an anterior or forward tilt in my hips. Most people do. And if the very first step to realigning this, which relieves pressure on your back, relieves pressure within your hip joint for down into the legs, is you can see that I'm eliminating the gap between my back by pulling down. And you can engage any number of things in order to do this: your glutes, the front of your hips, or the sides. And really, ideally, you want to use them all. You don't want to end up overcompensating where then your butt is flying off the ground. So it's just enough to realign your spine. You'll really feel your hips sit flat against the ground. So that's what I call PB, or pull back. So that's our pull back. And then the next step that's going to work on either your adductors, which are what allow you to squeeze together, or your abductors, which allow you to pull apart, is the PB and squeeze part. So, and you can use yoga block, anything. The stiffer the better, and ideally you want to find something that allows your feet to still be in that comfortable neutral position. So you're going to pull back, PB and squeeze now. So we're going to pull back, pull those hips back, and then squeeze this together. Oh, geez, my hip just popped right there. So, and then release. And when you release, I like to fully release all of the hips and everything and let yourself totally relax. So ideally you want to start in sets with your breath, ideally. And I like to do 3 and you can have this thing here if you want, but don't really even squeeze it for the first few. First thing you're going to focus on is pulling back on, say, either your in breaths and then releasing for your out breaths, or vice versa, whichever one feels better for you. So you're going to do 3 that are just pull back, and then you're going to go 3 that are pull back and squeeze, whether that's pull back and squeeze inwards, or the other option, or the other side that you ideally need to do both of, is outwards. So having a strap, and you can use any number of straps, ideally something that is not stretchy though. And the wider the better. Same thing, you want to keep your feet in neutral position. So after you do 3 just pulling back your hips, and then you do 3 of squeezing inward, then you can do 3 squeezing outward. We're going to pull back the hips and squeeze as hard as we can, and then release all the way. A lot of the times when I'm taking my full release, whether it's on the in breath or the out breath, I'll kind of rotate side to side. If that hurts in any way, do not do that, but if that allows you to kind of fully relax your IT bands, that's the best. And then some of the adaptations, and you can do these from an abductor point, or from the adductor where you're squeezing. I'm just going to keep this strap on here. Some of the different adaptations that you can do to increase resistance and turn it into more of a workout and less of a restorative exercise or sequence is to still do the same thing. I still recommend starting with just 3 pulling back, then starting with just 3 that are squeezing, and then you can start to move into pulling back, squeezing, and then you can do a glute thrust and pull up. But be cautious, it's really easy to start compensating, and right here letting my hips still slide back. The most important thing is to still maintain that pelvic tilt. The next step that you can work through from here that's going to make it harder is to continue to breathe, and every time you either inhale or exhale, pulling your hips further back and into better alignment. Some of the other ways you can increase resistance are going to be to either pick up 1 foot at a time, still watching those hips, or really focusing on just your feet and how they're connected to the ground, still keeping your hips up, don't let them sag, and then you can go onto your toes, onto your heels, onto your toes, onto your heels. Sometimes I like to reverse it and go one side toe, one side heel, and then you can start to incorporate different ways to balance and increase resistance by adding coordinated efforts as well as maintaining a focus on that posture. But number 1 priority is the posture. Okay.